From the heartland of America, focused on God, family, and country, the mouthpiece of the Midwest. This is Dale Carter's America.
Greetings and welcome to a special edition of Dale Carter's America. We have a terrific guest lined up who doesn't agree with me on a whole lot, and I'm okay with that. We're going to be talking to Scott Parks, who's part of Dana and Parks on the afternoon show over across the street at Odyssey's KMBZ. That's the TV station. I know what I'm talking about. KMBZ 98.1. But he was very gracious to come over and take up a guest spot, and we really appreciate that. I am Dale Carter. He is Kurt Wheeler. All the ways that you can hear and see Dale Carter's America, and viewing is very important. We're trying to get those viewing numbers up.
Viewing is doing. Isn't that what they say? That's a term that's a phrase I just made up. Welcome to the podcast for everyone watching and listening. Thank you very much. You can find the video version on YouTube or Rumble, audio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you drop a like and drop a comment. This week in particular, very important that you drop a comment. We'll get to that shortly. And make sure you follow us on Facebook as well for all the fun and commentary and back and forth we enjoy having with you.
All right. We want to thank Bob Watson, State Farm Insurance, for being part of our podcast. Bundle your home and car insurance and save with State Farm. Bob Watson, the 50-year agent there at State Farm here in the local area. He's licensed in both Missouri and Kansas. He can take care of you from his office in Blue Springs. He's my insurance guy, and I'll share him with you because him and his team are that terrific. 816-229-7878, Auto, Home, Life. And again, bundle your home and car insurance and save even more. Bob's a big Mizzou fan. I don't know if the Kansas folks want to know that or not, but Bob's a big Mizzou guy. And I was in Columbia over the weekend, which is why I'm wearing the Mizzou gear today. M-I-Z? Kurt?
No, I was letting the audience say it.
Oh, you were letting... I'll tell you who did say it. Two of them, the Knoxheims. They live in Chicago, Bill and Sherry. I hung out with them at the tailgate party in Columbia. Big fans of the podcast. In fact, they drive a lot and they listen. They don't watch, they listen. But we had quite the exchange there in Columbia with the Knoxheims. We love hearing from people like you who listen to our podcast. But like Kurt says, the thing that's going to help us grow to the, who's the big guy? Rogan?
Yeah, one of them.
To the Rogan-esque numbers will be from people like you telling other people. It's like, hey, you got to check this out. You got to check this out. And then we'll mushroom the thing all over the country. And then wouldn't that be a fun thing? We'd be almost as big as Tucker Carlson. Well,
actually, speaking of Tucker just overtook Rogan on Spotify as the #1 podcast on Spotify. So he's the top dog now.
All right, well, let's aim toward that top dog. Tucker Carlson is coming to town. He's going to be at T-Mobile Center. When is that?
Thursday.
This Thursday?
This Thursday.
You know who's coming Saturday is Hank Williams Jr. If it had been in the reverse, you'd probably get that smell of marijuana that would hang over after.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably not so much with the Tucker Carlson audience. But we have a chance for you to be at Tucker Carlson just because you're a fan of this podcast. How are we doing this?
So what we'd like to do, we do have some tickets to see Tucker on Thursday. I will be there with a couple friends, and you can be there as well. So he will be at the T-Mobile Center on this Thursday, September 12th, with special guest Megyn Kelly. And all you need to do, if you would like to go, you need to comment on YouTube. You need to comment on YouTube on this podcast, okay? So drop a comment. We'll go through and we'll pick out, I can't say, I don't know if Dale even knows how many tickets we have, but we'll give out pairs of tickets to as many people as we can. So drop a comment if you want to go see Tucker. Maybe you could comment something like Tucker, or comment, make it known that you would like to be considered for the tickets, or just drop a comment in general. And we will reach out if you have indeed won the tickets.
I think we have a bunch of them. I don't know what the number is. Ashley's the ticket person around here. Whenever anybody asks me for tickets for anything now, I just funnel them to Ashley.
Yeah.
Just go see Ashley.
Yep. And if you're listening to this on audio only, you just have to go over to YouTube. So open the video on YouTube. You need to have a YouTube account to comment, but so make sure that you have that squared away, and then drop a comment. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe as well. So even if you just listen to the audio podcast, week to week, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, because it does help us, and it does help us get the numbers up. So,
all right, Tucker Carlson tickets Thursday night, T-Mobile Center. Good luck to you. Hope that you are one of our winners here. We'll be getting in touch with them. I think we have to do it pretty quick too.
Yeah. That's the other thing. This episode will be out a day early. We're recording this on Monday. It will be out Tuesday this week instead of Wednesday, because we want to give people time to comment and then come pick up the tickets.
All right. Note to self, I'll probably mention this on KFKF as well, that we have a chance for you to win with the podcast. The other Dale who happens to live in Blue Springs is Dale Reynolds. And Dale Reynolds has a company called Dale's Body Shop. And it's not just Blue Springs. They deal with cars that get wrecked all over the metro area. Locally owned, not a franchise. They buy local, they hire local, they support local. He's always looking for good folks who can come to work for him there at Dale's Body Shop, fixing those cars, making them showroom new again. They've been doing it for 37 years. It's a long run, and they're ready to take care of your car. So if you get in a wreck in the Kansas City area and they say, where are we taking this thing? Just say Dale's Body Shop. Dale's Body Shop, Blue Springs, taking care of customers, taking care of you. This next guest has been around this market for a very long time as well. Very pleased and honored to welcome our special guest from KMBZ, Scott Parks. Special guest, longtime friend, Scott Parks from KMBZ. I am so glad to have you on the podcast.
Pleasure is mine. It's a privilege.
Yeah. Because honestly, politically, we probably don't agree on much. And I love that. When we have our Facebook page for the podcast, and I'll throw something out there that I believe in, and invariably, and you probably get this in callers on your show at KMBZ, you get idiot callers who call in and, you want to put them on the air, right? Blah, 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 blah. We get idiot posters on the Facebook page, and I invite them to come on. It's like, if you don't agree with me, let's talk about it. Maybe you can convince me. I feel like I'm a reasonable guy. And almost to the person, they say, well, you'll just edit what we say and it won't be, you'll take advantage and blah, 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 blah. I can tell you that Kurt is sitting there running the controls right now. We're not going to edit anything.
Well, I have no doubt. And I'm not worried about it.
So how far do we go? I know we go way back because you've been at BZ a long time.
I started at KMBZ in 1996.
Right.
In fact, I think you may have offered me a job in 1995. And foolishly, I took a job at V100. And nothing against V100 in Topeka.
Yeah.
But, I was a young kid and just getting started in the business. And I had two offers on the table, and I took the one that would have been the lesser commute, because I was living in Lawrence.
Yeah.
And I went to V100. And then from there, the rest is history. And ended up working in Lawrence and then started at KMBZ in 1996.
Yeah. You and my ex-wife worked together at KMBZ. She was
For
the
a
news
long time.
Weren't you the news director at one point?
I was the news director, and she was my assistant news director.
Right.
And your ex-wife is an amazing talent. I know you know that.
I do know that.
And she was brilliant on the air. And I haven't talked to her in quite some time, but I have nothing but respect and high regards for Lisa. She was great.
Awesome broadcaster.
Tremendous.
Not a great
people.
wife. I wasn't a great husband,
okay.
so we just moved on from there.
Okay. Listen, I'm not good at it either. I'm not getting back in the field. I can't catch.
I didn't think I was either, but third time's a charm. Maybe. We'll see. You can cut that part out, Kurt.
No, you said no editing. You said no editing.
No editing at all. Well, I have you on the podcast, selfishly, because I don't think that we agree politically.
I think that's fair.
And that's okay, right? I was just having this conversation with someone out in the sales pit, and I said at the end of the day, and we've had this challenge on the podcast, the two unacceptable answers to me moving forward are, oh, she's a woman of color. Wouldn't that be cool? That's not a reason to vote for somebody for president. And I hate Trump. I don't know that that's a reason to vote for her for president either. But at the end of the day, if you agree with what Kamala Harris stands for, you should vote for her.
Well, I want to be clear. I don't come here pro Kamala Harris. I come here, and I had a feeling, and you didn't tell me, full disclosure, you didn't tell me what we were going to talk about. I mean, hell, we could have been talking about my life story, your life story.
Right.
And I didn't want to know what we were going to talk about. I had an idea. But I don't come here pro Kamala. I come here anti-Trump. And I say that because up until January 7th of 2021, I was a registered Republican, a proud registered Republican. But what I saw the day prior, I couldn't excuse and I couldn't defend. And I've never voted for Donald Trump, ever. Not in 2016, not in 2020, and I will not vote for him in November of this year. I find, with respect to you, and I know that you're right, we disagree politically, I find Donald Trump to be a vile, disgusting, despicable human being. And it bothers me that the Republican Party can't find somebody better to nominate for president. If Nikki Haley was your nominee for president, I would vote for Nikki Haley in November because I'm more aligned with her points of view than I would be with Kamala Harris. If they would nominate even a Marco Rubio, or I can't say Ted Cruz, I don't like him, but it's just that the Republican Party that my parents belonged to, that I grew up in, that for years I was a proud member of, that Republican Party doesn't exist anymore. And I'm a Liz Cheney Republican.
Wow. Okay.
If she was running for president, she would get my vote. But it says something, and Dale, I want to let you get in because this is your podcast and I've taken way too much time of it. It tells me something when over the weekend Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney both come out, two old school Republicans, Reagan Republicans, and say they cannot and will not vote for Donald Trump. They will be voting for Vice President Harris.
Okay. Well, there's a lot to chew on right there. I didn't want Donald Trump to be the nominee. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of Republicans, Ron DeSantis ran. I like Ron DeSantis. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to retiring in Florida because I think he's done a hell of a job down in Florida. He didn't win. Nikki Haley didn't win. Donald Trump won. So at the end of the day, what I have to look at is, what does Kamala Harris stand for? What does Donald Trump stand for? We have 4 years of history with Donald Trump. You know, and I know a lot of people are going to jump on the COVID year and all that. COVID's behind us. So let's look at the 3 years prior to COVID. And when I look at that versus where we are today, and then I want to drill down constitutionally as well. And I will agree with you that January 6th was a bad look. I said that on my show on KFKF. Horrible look for Republicans. Horrible look for Donald Trump. But we're beyond that. So we look at constitutional issues here, okay? Do you support the Constitution?
Of course I do.
As amended?
Yes, of course.
Okay. I'm not sure the other side does. When I hear them say things like, we need to get rid of the filibuster. We need to, why do we even need a Senate? Let's just get rid of that. Where they come down on guns, which is anti-Second Amendment. When I look at a $35 trillion debt that's growing at a rate of $1 trillion every 100 days, that they step on and violate the 10th Amendment to our Constitution at will. Both parties do. Let's be honest about that. Both parties do. But at the end of the day, when I look at the economy, the border, foreign relations, look at where the world has gone since the hideous withdrawal from Afghanistan. It was the green light for every thug and dictator in this world to step up and take advantage of what Biden's administration was doing. I don't want 4 more years of that. I'm not like some of the people on the other side who think, if Donald Trump wins, it's the end of the world as we know it. We'll never have another election again. He's going to be dictator for life. That's bullshit, and you know that.
Well, he's 78 years old. How much life does he have left?
Exactly. But, they throw out the line of, he says he's going to be a dictator on day one. It's because Donald Trump is Donald Trump. And he says, I guess I'd be a dictator, because he's going to go in there on day one, and everything that Joe Biden threw out, that was working with relative to our border issue, he's going to rescind all of that. So I guess those are dictatorial powers that a president has through executive order. He's not going to become a dictator. That's just crazy talk. So I think the country and the republic will survive either way. And I guess that's where we might part company, because there are some people on your side who say if Donald Trump wins, that's the end of democracy.
Well, but define my side. I'm not a Democrat.
Yeah.
And I'm an anti-Trump. I'm a never Trumper. But you brought up a lot of things that, if you don't mind, I'd like to address.
Sure.
We'll start with the debt. And again, being a never Trumper sometimes forces you to defend people you otherwise wouldn't defend. In his 8 years as president of the United States, and I recognize that a president doesn't set the budget. They recommend the budget, the Congress passes it, and the president signs it. Mm-hmm. And that's all well and good. In his 8 years as president, Barack Obama, during those 8 years, the debt increased $8.7 trillion. I find it remarkable how supporters of Trump, and I'm not lumping you in that group because you indicated that you would prefer somebody other than Trump, but what I'm simply saying is I find it remarkable that the Republican Party of today is not the fiscal responsibility party of the 80s and 90s. Because in the 8 years of Barack Obama, the federal debt increased $8.7 trillion. In the 4 years of Donald Trump, the debt increased $8.7 trillion, which is to say that he was spending, under his administration, twice as much money as Barack Obama did in his 8 years. I mean, you can't, not you, this is a collective you.
Yeah, Dale. I get it.
The Republican Party can no longer grab the mantle of financial and fiscal responsibility when in 4 years they're dropping $8.7 trillion in debt. And I understand that MAGA wants to blame Joe Biden for the inflation that we have in this country. Let me give MAGA an economics 101 lesson. Inflation is created by outrageous government spending.
Correct.
When the government spends too much money, which they did during the years of Donald Trump.
And we're doing now.
No
we're
argument.
doing now.
Dale, you'll get no argument. I'm not pro-Biden.
Trump has not been president for 3.5 years, yet we're adding $1 trillion every 100 days.
Yes, it's out of
Larry
control.
Summers, who was Bill Clinton's Secretary of the Treasury, told Joe Biden, don't throw those trillions of dollars into the market, and he did it anyway.
And so did Donald Trump.
Okay,
but
hey, Kamala Harris,
the dollar in your pocket.
Kamala Harris is going to spend at unbelievable levels. The NPR said she will go as far left as the Congress will let her go.
I don't dispute that.
Bernie Sanders says she's cruising back to the middle to try and get your vote, right. But he knows, wink, wink, that when she gets in there, she's going to spend like a drunken sailor. Now, I wish Donald Trump would take the debt more seriously. I wish Republicans would take it more seriously. We have a saying on our podcast that Republicans are going toward the cliff at the speed limit, and the Democrats would go at rocket speed.
But they didn't prove that during the Donald Trump years, where they spent $8.7 trillion.
Well, let's take you back to that. Inflation was 1.4%. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, are we talking about the COVID year?
No. Well,
because if you're not going to include COVID, as you mentioned earlier, when we talk about Donald Trump, then we can't talk about the inflation during the COVID year, because then that doesn't count. Would you agree?
I would. And so you're saying inflation was higher prior to COVID?
I would think it was. I think it was 2.4%.
Okay, 2.4% is still within the Fed's target rate.
No dispute.
So inflation is low. Donald Trump thought that would be a time to invest, and I get that. It's not a time to invest when inflation is at 9%. That's not the time to throw a lot of government money out there. And as far as COVID goes, the PPP loans that went out there, our company took one. It kept this economy from going into a depression. because business owners were told if you meet certain guidelines, that loan is going to be forgiven. Okay? Biden wants to equate that to forgiving student loans. That's an apple and a steak.
I'm not in favor of forgiving student loans.
Yeah, well, good.
I think you and I would be on the same page. Let me get back to something else, though, that you mentioned, if I could, Dale, and that's the withdrawal from Afghanistan. If you think for a second I'm going to tell you that was handled well, you brought the wrong person on your podcast. It was a disaster. It was a disaster. But it was a disaster that was months in the making. And I only need to remind you that the Treaty of Doha was negotiated by the Trump administration.
It was.
Not with the Afghan government, which was in power at the time, but with the Taliban, an organization that the United States considers to be a terrorist organization. Donald Trump's administration negotiated the withdrawal from Afghanistan with a terrorist organization. The Afghan government wasn't even included. Donald Trump, as part of those negotiations, released 5,000 members of the Taliban that we held in custody. 5,000 Taliban that immediately returned to the battlefield, one of whom was part of the suicide bombing that sadly and tragically took the lives of 13 service members. Donald Trump even, and I don't know if he thought maybe I'm going to lose the election, negotiated the withdrawal from Afghanistan to the year after his first term. Why not, when he gets in power in 2017, January of 2017, he had run on the promise that he was going to get us out of these endless wars. Why not begin negotiating with the Afghan government, not the Taliban, immediately after taking office?
Well, who was running Afghanistan? And when you say Afghan government, who's the Afghan government?
Well, there was, would you not agree, there was an Afghan government that technically ran the country.
I think Afghanistan is one of the biggest sewers in this world, and
No dispute.
we proved it. The Russians proved it.
Right.
There is no winning in Afghanistan. But I would say that the generals who know what they're talking about told our commander-in-chief, who never had a job outside of being a senator and then vice president and then president, never even ran a hot dog stand. He certainly was never in the military. They told him this would be a disaster. And Joe Biden is one of the most stubborn people I've ever seen on the world stage. I mean, you want to talk about Trump all you want, but generals who are professionals said, do not do this. And he did it anyway. Much like Larry Summers, good Democrat working for Barack Obama, said, don't put these trillions of dollars into the economy. We can't do it right now.
Well, but
I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, but Dale, I would also remind you that in regards to Afghanistan, and not to belabor the point, but Donald Trump not only released 5,000 members of the Taliban as part of the Treaty of Doha, but he also whittled down our troop presence in Afghanistan from 13,500 to 3,500 just prior to his leaving office, and closed every air base we had except Bagram. That was the only air base that remained open in Afghanistan prior to his leaving office in January of 2021.
All right.
Yeah, but let me, and I know this is your podcast, but let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Because one of my favorite writers is Peggy Noonan. And I don't know if you've ever read this book, but I did. I got it years ago. And she, as you know, used to be a speechwriter for Ronald Reagan.
Right.
Wrote the famous Challenger speech that he delivered in 1986. Peggy Noonan wrote a book years ago called When Character Was King. And it was about Reagan. And I think you and I both hold Reagan in very high esteem.
Very high regard.
Give me one redeeming quality of Donald Trump.
He doesn't have any. He's an asshole. I've said that on this podcast before. And the ironic thing is, and we did this a couple of weeks ago, Kurt would correct me if I'm wrong on that, but back in the day, he was hanging out with Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. He was the darling of the left. The Clintons loved Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. He comes down the escalator as a Republican, and all of a sudden he's Hitler. He's worse than Hitler. He's Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, and Hitler had a baby and it came out looking like Donald Trump. How did he go from that to that?
Are you asking me?
I am. I think it's a great question.
I think for people like me who are former Republicans, I'm now a registered libertarian because I can't find a home.
That's a good home. I like that.
No, I don't mind it. But I think for a lot of us, of the never Trumpers, if you will, he's not a Republican. Other than, appointing 3 conservative, and I have no problem with that, Supreme Court justices, he's not a Republican in what we used to consider when we were younger, Dale, the real Republican Party, the Reagan Republicans, which became the Bush and the Cheney Republicans. But and not that party was perfect, but whatever he is not a Republican. This is a man who doesn't know his own opinion when he wakes up in the morning. He has no conviction. He has no character. I think you and I would agree on that. To quote you, he's an asshole.
He is an asshole.
Yeah, he is. He's a horrible human being. I wouldn't trust him to babysit my kids. I'm sure as hell not going to trust him to babysit my country.
You trust Joe Biden to babysit your kids?
but I'm not voting for Joe Biden either. I will vote for Kamala Harris. I will vote for her.
Why?
Because she's not Donald Trump.
And that's the only reason.
Mm-hmm. That is the thesis of a never Trumper is I'm from the Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney school. He cannot be trusted with the levers of power ever again. He can't.
Because of January 6th.
Absolutely. To me, that was traitorous. I mean, the fact that he sat in the White House for 3 hours after egging on, and you can't deny that he egged on his supporters, and sat there for 3 hours and didn't do a thing except watch television.
And you dismiss that he said protest peacefully and patriotically.
He also said we have to take our country back. I mean,
that's political rhetoric. They all say that.
I'm going to march down there with you. We all knew he wasn't going.
I mean, Hillary Clinton basically said her election was stolen.
I don't agree with her.
Stacey Abrams thinks she's still the governor of Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what they do.
Carrie Lake thinks she's the governor of Arizona.
This is what they do. They're politicians.
Yeah, they're horrible.
He was never going to not try every angle to win that election. Legally, in the courts, which he did. And then, you know what he did on January 20th?
He failed 63 out of 64
Do you know what he did January 20th? He left. Mm-hmm. There was no coup. There were no Marines barricading the Oval Office. He left.
And what did he do? He didn't even attend the inauguration of his successor.
I thought that was bad taste, too.
The first time in American history.
That's not true.
When was the other?
John Adams didn't go to Thomas Jefferson's.
You're right. I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Those two
there might be another one in political history. And one good thing for Joe Biden is he says no matter who wins, he's going to go to the inauguration, which he should. And I thought that was in bad taste.
You thought what was in bad taste?
That Trump not going.
Yeah.
I thought that was in bad taste.
Yeah, he can't. He is so narcissistic.
He is that
he can't admit when he's wrong or when he has lost.
What has Joe Biden admitted he's wrong about?
I don't know.
My point is,
I'm not here to defend Joe Biden.
They're all narcissists at that point.
Well, let me tell you this. I think on that we're going to agree. If you think that you're qualified to be the most powerful person on this planet, you have to be a narcissist. You have to be an egomaniac.
You definitely do.
But Donald Trump is a narcissist on steroids. He is an egomaniac on steroids.
Okay, well, let me back up the train here. What qualifies Kamala Harris to be president of the United States?
You really want my answer? Mm-hmm. You're going to hate it. She's not Donald Trump.
No, that's the answer I expected, actually, because that's the challenge I've put out to people. Again, it's like if the answer can't be, oh, it's so cool because she's like a woman of color, or Donald Trump's an asshole and I can't vote for Donald Trump, there has to be another reason. And you're telling me there isn't another reason.
No, what I'm saying is, sadly, in these United States, we are left with...
Terrible choice.
Yes, that's exactly right. And again, I'm not here to defend Joe Biden. I'm not here to defend Kamala Harris. And I knew I was coming in here because I'm a never Trumper, and I'm happy to attack Donald Trump all day and night because I find him that detestable, and that his lack of character. And let me backtrack. Let me rewind my tape for just a second. There is nothing about Donald Trump that if this was 2004, 2000, 1984, 1980, there's nothing about him that as Republicans former Republican, we would not have considered absolutely disqualifying. Absolutely disqualifying. Thrice divorced, cheated on every single one of his wives, raw dogged a porn star, paid her off. We all know that. Come on. Took out an ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 people that were later exonerated. Now, why did he do that? Of all the crimes that are committed in New York, he takes out a full-page ad in the New York Times against 5 young black men who were wrongfully accused in an assault in Central Park. If you're asking me, do I think Donald Trump's a racist? The answer is yes, I do.
Well, you'd have to go back to Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and why they loved the guy.
Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, not Jesse Jackson, but Al Sharpton, you could clearly make the case as an anti-Semite.
You could. You absolutely could.
Yeah. I mean, they're, everything about Donald Trump is disqualifying.
What do you say to half the country then who supports him?
Why? What is it about this personality?
Well, I think what they look at is
so attractive.
Their wallets, our border, and the state of the world, during his presidency.
Yeah, but all right, let's talk about the border. He was going to build a wall and Mexico was going to pay for it. That's a 2,000-mile border.
Right.
And he built 47 miles of fence. Mexico didn't pay for it.
Of course not. There are certain the other side talks about all the lies. Of course, they don't hold Democrats to the same standard, and they're lying their asses off too. I mean,
well, but Fox doesn't either. Fox doesn't call Trump out on his. Can I be
sure
bullshit? Fox. I mean, when
was that a freeing moment for you to say that on a microphone?
Well, I've never done it before. I have to watch. I have to ask you for permission.
Go ahead. You were in mid-thought.
I was just going to say, you're right. I mean, I watch all 3 cable news channels religiously, probably to a fault, too much. And if your argument to me is going to be that Morning Joe doesn't call out Joe Biden or Kamala Harris when they make big mistakes, but that they super focus on Donald Trump's mistakes, no argument. But Fox News does the same thing, except in reverse. I mean, when Donald Trump says something, the word salad over the weekend, and that's the only way to describe it. When he was asked on Friday about, what are you going to do regarding child care, which I would argue is a state issue and not a federal issue.
It is a state issue.
But the federal government could offer tax credits, et cetera, for people who make less than a certain amount of money, but whatever. And this tariff word salad that he threw out when asked about child care, Fox News never played that clip, and they never will, because they know that what he said was complete garbage that can't be retrieved. And now, in fairness, MSNBC would do the exact same thing if Joe Biden or Kamala Harris had said something similar.
God, what happened to the good old days, Scott, where the news, you had Walter Cronkite, and as liberal as he was, you didn't know from watching him on television.
Dale, those days are gone, and
it was just a straight up newscast. It's like and as a news guy, does it bother you that Kamala Harris can't or won't sit down and answer questions?
Well, she did do the one interview with.
Oh, come on.
Now, hang on. I'm going to answer your question.
That was an eye roll, by the way.
But to say that she hasn't done an interview, I don't think is fair. But as somebody with a degree in journalism, from I think a highly accredited university, KU, in Nebraska, of course it bothers me. Why not? What are you afraid of? What is it about sitting down? Because I don't think, unlike what Trump says about her, I don't think she's dumb. I may disagree with a lot of things that she believes in, but I don't think she's a stupid woman. Why not just sit down? Is it the momentum that you have? Is it the fear of making a mistake that will be played over and over again in commercials on Fox News? Dale, to answer your question, it's a problem. And I would actually argue, because the new polling came out today from CNN, and this was national likely voters, and Trump is up 48 to 47. I think a huge mistake that the Harris campaign has made is thinking that they could ride the tidal wave of momentum that they had from a month ago. that tidal wave has dissipated.
Right.
And they need to get her out there. It's not enough to do glossy rallies and a lot of commercials. People want to know, what is it that you really believe? Answer this question, answer that question. And I think they've gone probably 2 or 3 weeks too long.
So you live on the Kansas or Missouri side?
Kansas.
Okay, I live on the Missouri side. Those states, we might as well have the scoreboard, the big national map up.
Vote. It doesn't matter.
Your state's going up red.
Yeah.
My state's going up red. It's going to come down to half a dozen toss-up states. So who do you think? What's your prediction? How's this thing going to come out?
Boy, the only political prediction I ever got right was in 2008. I was on with Nolan Ellen on KMBZ one morning, and I was a huge McCain fan. I love John McCain. He was my political hero. And they knew that. And they said, I was getting ready to head to I was getting ready to head to Denver, I think, for the Democratic convention. And then the immediate week after, we were going to St. Paul for the Republican. And John McCain had not named a running mate yet. And I'm on the phone with Nolan Ellen from my house. And they said, who's John McCain going to pick as his running mate? And there was talk about like John Kasich and, Tim Pawlenty and all these other people. And I said, he's going to pick an obscure governor from Alaska that you've never heard of. And her name is Sarah Palin. It's the only political prediction I've ever gotten right. So when you ask me who's going to win, then I'm going to have to say Trump. Because I hope he doesn't, because I've never gotten a political prediction right in my life.
We're going to hold on to this, right? Kurt has a collection of my predictions over the years. We're going to hold on to yours as well.
Boy, Dale, I don't know. Honest to God.
Yeah.
I thought that the things that Trump had done over the 4 years of his presidency and the 4 years since, 3.5 years since, I thought for sure most people would just completely disqualify him. And yet, he's not disqualified in 50% of the American population. If I had to guess, I actually do think Donald Trump wins.
Okay. Well, I mean, the good news for you and me, I think probably, is that in 2028, he will not be running. Either way, right?
Well, constitutionally, no, he would be forbidden, and he would be only the second president. Most people don't know this. If he wins in November, would be only the second president to serve 2 terms that were not consecutive.
Right.
The other was Grover Cleveland.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see if that happens again. I don't know. Dana in Parks is the name of the show. I'm not sure how you didn't get your name first.
Don't want it first.
You don't want it first.
No.
Okay. And you're on KMBZ 98.1.
2 to 6.
2 to 6. All right.
And so you're on 6 to 10 on KFKF.
5 to 9.
Oh, 5 to 9.
See, I'm the early bird over here.
Well, see, I'm usually at the gym at 9 o'clock. And but when I do listen, it is in the 6 o'clock hour.
All right. So a little news tip for your show this afternoon. My show, once again, nominated by the CMAs for Large Market Air Personality of the Year. That just came down today. I've been nominated 10 times. I've never won.
So you're like the...
oh, don't say it. Oh, don't say it.
Is it Susan Lucci? Yes. Is that her name?
Do you know how old that's gotten over the years? I wish they'd just give me the damn thing and I'd go away.
Well, I'll tell you this. For Media Mix nominated us for years, and it was just last year that we won.
Yeah.
So we were the Susan Lucci of Media Mix.
Oh, well, I got nominated for that this year, so I'm probably...
Congratulations.
It'll be 15 years. I won't live long enough to ever win it.
Stop it.
Scott Parks, man, I love having you on here. I love the banter, the give and take.
Well, but can I leave you with this real quick?
Please.
And I know it's your podcast. How refreshing that 2 people who do not see eye to eye can sit in a room like this, have a congenial conversation where we can agree to disagree, not grab each other by the throat,
exactly,
beat the crap out of each other, and just, I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me, and that's fine.
How American is that? I mean, that is American.
It's very American.
Yeah.
It's what makes us Americans.
Plus, you live in Kansas, so I have no fear. If you vote in Pennsylvania, let me know.
By the way, your sweatshirt offends me.
Scott, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
You
Dale.
bet. Very interesting exchange there with Scott Parks. We'll get to Kurt's thoughts on it here coming up in just a second. But first, we want to thank Royal Roofing and Solar for being a sponsor of our podcast, solarbyroyal.com and royalcontractingkc.com. Boy, fall is a great time to take to take the measure of your roof, Do you need a new roof? I mean, Kurt and I have been talking about, he's been house shopping and all that, and that's one of the things you got to do when you get an inspection. You got to look at the roof. When's the last time the roof was redone? If it's time for your roof, if you're putting like buckets and pans because of the leaks, or if you've got storm damage, we had quite a few storms come through this year, let them do the inspection and then tell you what you need to know about solar. Solar won't work for everyone, and Mike Dale will take you through the traps on that. And boy, if you can get solar working for you and tell Evergy, maybe you should pay me this month. Maybe I'm going to get a credit on my bill instead of an electric bill. Wouldn't that be a great thing? 816-540-7057. Royal Roofing and Solar. Solarbyroyal.com and KCContractingKC.com. Fine folks there. Austin Watterson's company right there in Cass County.
Tremendous people.
Now, if you're turning 65 or that finish line is coming soon, a lot of people are only staying in their job because they've got insurance and they're going, hey, Medicare's coming and I am so ready for it. You have no idea what you're in for with Medicare. The folks like Kirk Doris and Lori Hocker at Medicare Simplified KC, they have studied Medicare. They know all the ins and outs of Medicare. And over the last decade, they've helped thousands of people just like you who are about to turn 65 understand that Medicare is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. You've got options and choices to make. Kirk and Lori will help you navigate that maze. Don't sit through a 2-hour Medicare seminar because most of the stuff presented there will not pertain to you. You want to get a customized look at what Medicare means for you. Medicare Simplified KC, where you get the answers and know your options. You can reach them on the phone at 816-701-6661. They're on the web at MedicareSimplifiedKC.com. And just like all of our sponsors, they too are tremendous people.
New website also, if you're watching.
Nice.
Yeah, brand new website. Look at that.
I don't know. I see Kirk and Lori on there. I don't know who the others are.
We have Mackenzie Peterson, agent, and Richard Doris, agent. I wonder, I'm sure he's related.
I'm sure he's related. Okay.
That's just a coincidence. Yeah. Same last name.
Yeah. Tremendous people.
Tremendous people.
So the debate's coming up, and we're recording this before the debate happens. There was just really no way around that with our calendar and our schedule. So we'll get to some debate takes in next week's podcast. But before we get to that, you sat there through the interview with Scott Parks and me. Any overall feedback?
I sat there like a good boy, and I said nothing.
Hey,
I said nothing.
Last time we had somebody in here who didn't agree with either one of us, you thought I went too easy on him.
100% felt the same way. 100%.
I went too easy on Scott?
100%. You didn't push back at all.
Wow.
I wish I was in that chair because I would have handled it very differently. But That's why it's your podcast, not mine.
Well, bottom line is, he's not going to vote for Trump because he hates Trump.
Right, but
you can't have a policy discussion with somebody who identifies as a libertarian who agrees with you on most policy things. We could sit here and talk policy all day long. He's not going to vote for Trump because he hates Trump.
Right. But I mean, it's not really helping when, he says, name one redeeming quality about Trump, and you say there are none. He's an asshole. I mean, that's not true. There are plenty of redeeming qualities about Trump. We love the guy. I love the guy. He's great. He's loyal. He's substantive. He is hilarious. He's strong-willed. Fight. Remember that? That happened
I do.
5 weeks ago, whenever that was. I mean, there are plenty of redeeming qualities about the guy. He stands up to the media. He stands up to the left. Unlike any of these other people, he's like, oh, if Nikki Haley was the candidate, I would vote for Nikki Haley. First of all, I don't believe that. I don't think he would have voted for Nikki Haley. And second of all, she sucks. She would have lost. So, but that's not. I'm not interested in countering him because he's not here. It would be one thing if we were.
You just want to give me shit for how I conducted the interview.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, what I would say is, it was classic Trump derangement syndrome on display.
Oh, without a doubt. He mentioned Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney, and that's in the news today. And I read that story, and I read it on the air. I read it straight, just like The Wire wrote it. And I said, so if you were waiting to see which way Liz Cheney, the Republican who went against Donald Trump after January 6th, if you were waiting to see who she was going to vote for, well, now you know. I mean, who gives a shit? Yeah. I mean, Dick Cheney, who cares?
Yeah. I mean, nobody cares.
Who
Nobody
cares who anybody's going to vote for? Go out and vote. And like I said at the end of the Scott Parks interview, if he lived in Pennsylvania, it might matter to me. But he lives in Kansas.
Right.
Kansas has already gone up red.
But when you're doing stuff like that, I mean, when you're having a debate or even a friendly discussion, which I would kind of categorize that more as, it's not necessarily about convincing the person that you're in front of. It's about, how people receive it that are viewing it, other people that are viewing it. So, I mean, all the notes that I took notes, and it's just things that you didn't push back on. I mean, you didn't push back on any redeeming qualities of Trump. You didn't push back on January 6th and the bullshit narratives around that. The fact that people are in solitary confinement awaiting trial for walking into a building with open doors. You didn't push back on the Central Park Five, that they're obviously guilty. They admitted on tape to attacking and raping an innocent woman in Central Park. And because some other guy came out and also admitted to the crime, now I guess they're exonerated, despite the fact that they've never been proven innocent in a court of law. They were already convicted. They already served jail time, and now one of them is representing Harlem in state Congress, I think it is, which is just infuriating. But and then I also wrote down he has a degree in journalism, which makes sense. But
but you weren't going to shit all over the guest.
No.
No.
I mean, I have plenty of things I could say about what he said, but to me, it's obvious, and I think to probably our audience, it's obvious. So,
I've said from almost day one that I thought Donald Trump was an asshole, and I think he would take that as a compliment.
No, I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I mean, everyone wants to, have this. It's like rose-colored glasses. It's like how you see things through rose-colored glasses, but it's the opposite of that. Everyone views Trump through shit-colored glasses. He's always the worst possible version of himself. He's a narcissist. He's an asshole. He's terrible. He's despicable. He's the worst person ever. He's Hitler. It's like, no, he's not. Yeah. He's a normal guy. He talks like a normal person. He has kids. He runs a business. Does he have flaws? Sure. But he has plenty of great qualities, too.
I just wish, and I know that a lot of people who are going to vote for him anyway, I've talked to them, I know they're out there, just wish that he would stop talking about himself. Just stop talking. Stop this, oh, woe is me. They've treated me so poorly, so badly. Nobody's been mistreated this badly. Not even Andrew Jackson, who they say was mistreated badly. I mean, nobody cares. What are you going to do? How are you going to turn back what has happened in the last 3.5 years? That's all we care about.
Right, but from a debate standpoint, which is not necessarily what that was with Scott, and I think part of it is, that you guys are friends and, you don't want to be too combative and all that. And I get it. It's totally fine. Again, it's your podcast, not mine. But, like debate technique is not to like cede the ground to who you're talking to. Like if somebody's like, oh, the person you're voting for is a terrible person. They're the worst person ever. They're an asshole. And you're like, yeah, you're right. But how about taxes? How about, it's like, that's not going to win anybody over. You got to push back.
All right. So you got your point of view in.
Yes.
Maybe we'll figure out how to get 3 microphones in here so you can attack the next guest.
It's not shitting on him. It's just shitting on you because you're sitting in the room with me right now.
And by the way, if you are one of our keyboard warriors out there and you know who you are, you listen or watch this podcast and you make your little comments and I've invited you on and you're like, oh no, you'll edit.
Pay me.
Well, first of all, fuck you. We're not going to pay you. Secondly, we obviously don't edit things around here, right?
Yeah.
We just don't. I mean, so you're just a pussy. That's what it comes down to. You can't go. I mean, look at what Kurt says about me. I'm a pushover. You can come on this podcast and say whatever you want, and I won't even push back on you.
I mean, yeah. If it was the keyboard warriors, I think I would want to have that one because I want a piece of that for sure.
We'd have boxing gloves for that one.
I'm a good debater, so they don't want to mess with me.
Yeah. Well, I'm a master debater. Just so you know. Moving right along here, Kamala Harris, finally, the day before her debate with Donald Trump, finally, KamalaHarris.com puts up some policy, quote-unquote policy issues that they put up here. And in each one of them, they attack and or misstate Donald Trump's position.
Yeah. Let's look through some
The new way forward. The new way. I mean, isn't she the vice president? Hasn't her administration been in charge for 3.5 years?
I thought so, yeah.
So what's the new way forward?
Build an opportunity economy and lower costs for families, cut taxes for middle-class families, LOL, make rent more affordable and home ownership more attainable, grow small businesses and invest in entrepreneurs, take on bad actors and bring down costs, strengthen and bring down the cost of healthcare, protect and strengthen Social Security and Medicare, support American innovation and workers, provide a pathway to the middle class through quality, affordable education, invest in affordable child care and long-term care, lower energy costs, and tackle the climate crisis.
You know, whenever I hear invest, you know what I hear? Spend, spend, spend.
Right.
That's what they're going to do.
And also, I mean, the way that they phrase these things is obviously very important. You know, you can tell that they're trying to moderate the appearance of Kamala Harris because she was the most radical senator in terms of her voting record and her past policy positions and things that she said. So, you know, something like grow small businesses and invest in entrepreneurs. You know, it's they're trying to couch it in a way that can appeal to the Scott Parks out there, you know, people like him.
Yeah.
Trump's Project 2025 agenda. It's in red. It's bad.
Well, which he's already said is not his agenda. But again, I've read through Project 2025. There's actually some good stuff in there that we would support.
Right. And I'll just scroll through. I mean, I don't have to read every single one of these, but so she does actually have, you know, some stuff on here. And then within each of these, you can click and you know.
I'm waiting for the keyboard warriors now. Dale Carter says he's for Project 2025.
Yeah.
He's
come on,
worse
bring it.
than Hitler and Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein. If the three of them got together, merged their semen into something and produced a baby.
Wow.
I know.
That's a visual.
Yeah, you don't want to think about that. All right, so are we done with Kamala? What's your deal on Liz Cheney here? You got something on that?
Yeah, there was just a clip. You know, you had mentioned that
the Cheneys are going to vote for Kamala Harris. They say they're conservatives, right?
Yeah.
Even I wouldn't do that, right? It's like, I get Donald Trump has flaws, but I remember the Donald Trump years as being better for the country and border security and what happened overseas, miles ahead of the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration. So even if I don't like the guy personally, I'm going to vote for him. I can't imagine going on television and saying, I'm this great conservative. So you know how I'm going to celebrate my conservatism? I'm going to vote for the most liberal senator in the United States Senate.
Right. And of course, you know, they can't, these people, the rhinos, the never Trumpers, they can't just say who they're going to vote for. They can't just say, oh, I'm voting for Kamala. They have to make a big deal out of it. They have to go on the liberal Sunday talk shows so that they can shit on Republicans and shit on Trump. They have to make a big a big spectacle about it. And we want to talk about how Trump is the narcissist. Trump is the narcissist. He only cares about himself. I mean, this lady has made her entire career
off Donald Trump
and off of opposing him. Who's the narcissist? One
of the things Scott Bark said that you would agree with is they're all narcissists, right?
Yeah, I mean, to varying degrees for sure, but yeah, you have to be some kind of crazy. I mean, politics is Hollywood for ugly people. So
exactly. There you have it. Which is why I'm a 3-term city councilman in Blue Springs. Yeah. Okay. Let's roll. Man. Liz Cheney.
To support Harris, and why'd you do it now?
Yeah, I've been voting for 40 years. My first vote I ever cast was for Ronald Reagan in 1984. I've never voted for a Democrat.
Wow.
And it tells you, I think, the stakes in this election. Donald Trump presents a challenge and a threat fundamentally to the republic. We see it on a daily basis. Somebody who was willing to use violence in order to attempt to seize power, to stay in power. Someone who represents unrecoverable catastrophe, frankly, in my view. And we have to do everything possible to ensure that he doesn't, that he's not reelected. Given how close this race is, in my view, again, it's not enough. You have many Republicans out there who are saying, well, we're not going to vote for him, but we will write someone else in.
Right.
And I think that this time around, that's not enough. That it's important to actually cast a vote for Vice President Harris.
Wow. A conservative who says she's going to vote for Kamala Harris. I just that's unfathomable to me.
These people are worse than Democrats. I mean, 100%.
They're worse than Hitler. They're worse than Hitler and Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden merging their sperm and creating a baby. That's what it would look like. It would look like Liz Cheney.
It would, yeah.
She must be the same age I am, or close, because we both voted for Ronald Reagan in 1984. I will not be voting for Kamala Harris.
There you go.
And the good news is Wyoming, where she lives, is staunchly Republican. So unless she has changed her address to somewhere in Pennsylvania, I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah, and she's not even in Congress anymore. So, like...
She lost.
Yeah.
She lost because Wyoming said, really? This is what you think is the most important thing to Wyoming? Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. Now all she has is going on liberal talk shows and repeating liberal talking points and then calling herself a Republican.
And her dad trying to make himself relevant again, which he's not. You know, Dick Cheney, I mean, you know, there's a guy, right? George W. Bush is going to run for president. They appoint Dick Cheney as the chairman of the person to find, you know, the VP for him. And guess who emerges? Oh, I think it's me.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Yeah. Scott said he's a Liz Cheney Republican, so let that be what it is. But, you know, he mentioned Trump's flaws of how he's been divorced and he cheated on his wives.
Yeah.
Dick Cheney shot someone in the face.
Oh, and trust me, the liberals were on Dick Cheney like stink on ugly back in the day. He was also, you know, I'm not going to keep saying that over and over again because you've got the visual in your head. You know what I'm talking about. You know, and Scott said something else too, and I know I don't push back because I'm nice. I want these people to come on and all that. I felt like I pushed back a little bit. But he says, you know, the classic Republicans. Now, this is back before you were probably a little kid, Kurt, but back in the day, Republicans never had the majority in the House of Representatives. Democrats had it for 50 years. There was a minority leader from Illinois named Bob Michel. And Bob Michel liked playing golf with the Democrats. He liked palling around with them because he knew he never had a shot, and they never pushed back. That's the kind of Republicans that Scott Parks is talking about. The pushover Republicans. It's like, okay, all right, we're just going to go along to get along. And then all of a sudden Trump goes down the escalator, says he's a Republican. He is a bull in a china shop. I can say that about him, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it upsets the apple cart. And we said this last time. I don't think this is a left versus right election. If it were, I think Scott Parks would be with me. This is a Donald Trump shaking up the establishment versus the establishment, and they want to keep control. That's why they are so deathly afraid of Project 2025, because if you get into the weeds of Project 2025, all of a sudden it's like these agencies that are the fourth column. The fourth column. I was going to say, you've got the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. Okay, so the fourth branch of our government shoots off of the executive, and it's career people who've been in those jobs forever. They're not going anywhere. Just because you get a change in administration, they're still there. Now, I think the Chevron decision that came down from the Supreme Court might have been one of the most important decisions that didn't get a lot of fanfare, because all of a sudden the court said to these agencies, you can't just take a nebulous bill that Congress has passed that's now a law and say, okay, well, we're going to do this, 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 and this. That's not outlined in the bill or outlined in the law. You can't do that anymore. So the Supreme Court basically has stepped up and done a lot of what Project 2025 is trying to accomplish. Now, Project 2025 would say the president can fire all these people at will and move on with other people. And they are terrified of that because they want that, generational shift to the left that comes with things like that. That those people that are never going to lose their jobs. And Project 2025 says, not only do we not need a Department of Energy, a Department of Education at the federal level, we don't need all of you, right? If you can't enforce the laws that are on the books, we don't need you. We don't need conflicting regulations. This agency says you can't do that, but this agency says it's okay. Which one's the right one? You don't know. So you hire 15,000 lawyers to deal with it. I mean, that's one of the biggest problems in this country, I think.
Yeah.
So, preview of the debate. The mics will be muted. That is a final decision. So when you watch the debate, and maybe you've already seen it by the time you've heard or seen this podcast, She should not be able to get that moment that she wants. She wants nothing to do with policy. She doesn't want that to be the story that comes out of this, because otherwise it's going to be flip-flop, flip-flop, flip-flop. What she wants to come out of this debate with is, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. Right? That's what she wants. She wants to cast Trump as a bigger bully than he is. And remember when he debated with Hillary and he walked over there and she flinched?
Yeah.
That's the moment that they want.
Yeah. Well, Trump has the ability to have those moments too. I mean, he had one with Hillary when he said, because you'd be in jail, and everyone lost their minds. Or when when they said something about degrading women and make fun of women, he said only Rosie O'Donnell. I mean, that's one of the great debate moments of all time, in my opinion. But I think now in 2024, him having been president, you're correct in your assessment that it's better for him politically to sort of take the high road, or sort of just talk about policy, talk about his record against the Biden record. He doesn't need the fireworks anymore. He's already done that. We already know who he is. He can do the fireworks on Twitter or whatever. But in terms of on TV in front of the debate crowd, I think the muted mics will help him. So we'll see.
So, and I think he's going to win. I don't know that I've said that publicly yet, but I think he's going to win. I mean, he's up by 1 in the national likely voter poll. He was down 6 to Hillary Clinton, and he won. I think there are a lot of people out there, Kurt, who don't want to tell a pollster they're going to vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, there's some truth to that. In terms of the polls, he was like way, way, way up with Biden. And then when Biden dropped out and Kamala came in, there was a huge shift.
Well, she got her wave.
She got a wave, and she went up, and she was leading. And then ever since then, it's been trickling back down. So we'll see. And now I think it's trickled down to the point where he's slightly in the lead again. So we'll see if that trend continues in the polls or not. I don't really know how much polls can be trusted. It's really hard to tell, but we'll see what happens.
Well, put it in a jar somewhere that I said I thought he was going to win, and Scott Parks predicted that Donald Trump is going to win. So we'll see what happens there. But in case she wins, because again, NPR, National Public Radio, says that she'll go as far left as Congress will let her. Congress becomes very important there. The Senate has a lot of vulnerable Democrats that are up. John Tester in Montana is one of those. West Virginia is probably going to get a Republican flip there. I mean, we need to have the Senate, and we'd love to hold on to the House. Because if she becomes president, you need to block her at every turn, because she'll say exactly what Barack Obama said. And he had, didn't he have both houses for at least part of his term?
At the beginning,
yeah. And then he lost it because his policies were so far left. And remember what he said? I got a phone and I got a pen.
Right.
And that's exactly the kind of president she'll be. She'll have a phone and a pen, and she will lead through executive fiat. So we got to try and block her from a congressional perspective in case she wins. Now, if Trump wins and we get the Senate and we get the House, maybe some things might finally get rolled back. Maybe we won't put $1 trillion on the debt every 100 days. Wouldn't it be nice to start turning that thing around? It would be, because we're going to have to. I mean, we are a very selfish generation. Think about this, right? We are leaving it not to your kids, Kurt, but your kids' kids and beyond. We're leaving them a big mess. And for those who think it doesn't matter, it will matter at some point, because all of a sudden, China's not buying our debt anymore, right? You've put so much debt on the books, and with interest rates where they are, just paying the interest on the debt, which you have to do. You can't just say, we're a sovereign country, so our debt doesn't matter. Our debt does matter, and the interest on the debt has to be paid. And right now, that's like the number 2 or number 3 line item in the budget. That ought to scare the shit out of you. So down ballot races are very important, and once we do win, we got to hold their feet to the fire. That's my take on all that.
Amen.
Midwest GI Health. MidwestGIHealth.com. Dr. Mark Taramina. I got a sad story to tell here, and I can't mention any names, but a mid-30 female, colon cancer, and it's stage 3, already expanded to her entire body. Now, we say 45 is the new 50. I would say, and Dr. Taramina could probably confirm this, if you've got colon cancer in your family, you probably need to drop that number even lower. Because again, what we say is, and what is true, we used to say 50-year-olds, now we say 45-year-olds, get that colonoscopy. If you catch it early, you can treat it. If you don't catch it early and it gets to stage 3 and it goes body wide, you're going to die. And at 35 years old, how sad is that?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. Do something about it. Encourage those who have it in their background, in their family history, colon cancer, or if they're 45 or older and have not had a colonoscopy, get with Dr. Mark Taramina, Midwest GI Health and Wellness, 816-836-2200, on the web at midwestgihealth.com. This is something that could save your life. And I wish that that young lady, I don't know if they had colon cancer in their family or if this is just a one-off and just a terrible tragedy, but get that early detection, and it can and will save your life. And then once you got your life to look forward to, what do you want to do? You want to live the American dream. You want to buy a house. You want to build a house, right? You need Michael Schroer on your team. He's on our team, real estate professional at RE/MAX Heritage. You can find him at 816-783-5800. Let him put his 35 years of residential and commercial construction experience to work for you. Let's find that right home for whatever stage in life you're in. If you're like Kurt and you got a growing family, you need that house. If you're having even more kids, you need that house. When the kids go off to college and you don't need that big a house, you need to go the other way. Maybe you got a dream home that you're thinking about building, a piece of land that you want to look at. Michael Schroer is your guy. 816-783-5800. Again, that's real estate professional, RE/MAX Heritage, Michael Schroer. He is our guy. Well, coming up, Kurt, it's the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. Do I want to know how old you were? You were in grade school?
I was in 4th grade.
Yeah. Do you remember what that day was like?
I do.
Did they come to you in school and let you know what was going on?
So my camera's not plugged in, so I'm frozen. Oh, that doesn't look too bad. Okay. So I was in 4th grade. I was in the library, and we were having class with the librarian. He was reading a book to us. It was kind of a similar memory to that video of Bush reading the kids, where the guy comes up and whispers in his ear. Somebody came in, said something to the librarian, and then very quickly after that, there was an announcement made that basically school was going to be over and that our parents would be coming to pick us up. They didn't tell us, what was going on because we're too young to understand. I think I've heard from people that were in high school that, they would pull in the TV and they would watch the news coverage on TV in high school, but you can't really do that with elementary schoolers. So I went home and we were watching on TV with my mom and my stepdad. I remember that. But
did it mean anything to you at that young of an age?
I don't think so. I just have the memory of the experience. I don't really have the memory of how it felt or, how I perceived it or how I, digested it, I guess you could say. Obviously, now I'm an adult and have fully formed opinions and all that stuff. But back then I think I was a little too young for that.
When I was on the air, it was a Tuesday morning. I'll never forget. We had left Arrowhead Stadium on Sunday. We beat the Raiders that day, Sunday at Arrowhead Stadium. And I was just a fan then going to the game. And it was a beautiful day in Kansas City. And I was thinking, what an awesome country that we live in. And that was on Sunday. Tuesday morning, I am doing the show on KFKF in the old studios on the plaza, and Mary McKenna, my co-host, was across the board from me, and then over her left shoulder, we had a television in the newsroom. Randy Birch was the news guy, and the television was aimed at me at an angle, and I think we had it on Channel 4 usually to get the latest temperature or whatever. And it's about 7:45. Gary Lezak calls me. Gary wasn't even our meteorologist anymore, just a dear friend. And he called me and he said, Dale, a plane hit the World Trade Center. And right now, Channel 9, the ABC affiliate, is the only one that has it. And they had a static picture of the tower on fire. And we thought at that point it was just a terrible accident, right? And I'm recording a segment that we're going to play back later in the hour with our Nashville insider at the time, a guy named Neil Hayslip. And Mary and I are talking to Neil on the telephone through the board, and I look up and I see that TV, and I see another plane flying, and it makes a little circle route, right? And my first thing is, that's a really tall building. They're probably just going to throw down some water or fire retardant. Maybe that's how they're going to try and put the fire out because it's up so high. And then I saw that plane slam into that tower, and it just took my breath away. I'll never forget, I told Neil, I said, this segment's never going to air. We'll talk to you soon. And we went live wall-to-wall with coverage. Eventually, we ended up putting KCTV5 signal on KFKF, and we didn't play a song on KFKF or a commercial for 2 days. It was just nothing but wall-to-wall coverage. And you said, being in the fourth grade, it didn't really have that much of an impact on you. I started watching the funerals, right? And I got myself into such a funk, I had to turn off all television because I just couldn't pull myself out of it.
Yeah.
It was that depressing about what had happened in this country. And, we fought back. We had the war on terror. George W. Bush, I think, did an outstanding job leading this country from the rubble in Manhattan with the bullhorn saying, I hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people that knock these buildings down will hear from all of us soon. And they did for a very long time. And the war on terror, in my view, will never end because there are still terrorist thugs out there who hate our way of life and want to kill us and destroy our way of life. And that's why we cannot vote for Kamala Harris for president. Because look at what has happened to the southern border. The millions of people who have come across that southern border. Don't you believe, Kurt, that there are those who've come across that southern border who mean to harm us and take away our way of life?
Yeah, they're already here. They're already coming in.
And what will they do? And how were they allowed to get here? That alone. I mean, Scott Parks talked about January 6th. He can talk about that till he's blue in the face. He says that's a disqualifying moment for Donald Trump to be president. What's happened on the southern border when she was put in charge of the southern border is disqualifying to make her the next president. And God help us if those people are here and what they will do. And screw you if you say that I'm anti-immigration, because I am not. If it weren't for legal immigration in this country, I would not be here, because my family that came over from Germany came over the right way. Now, I don't know about the Carter side. I mean, they were here before the Revolutionary War. But my mother's side of the family came through, and they did it the right way, immigrating. Okay? I'm all for legal immigration that we need to keep this country running. What I am not for is millions of people coming unchecked across that southern border. We don't know who they are or why they're here. And are they here to do us harm? We've seen some of it already. How many murders and rapes have happened from people who have come to this country illegally?
Too many.
Well, and then you can say, well, the murder rate or the rape rate or whatever, blah, 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 blah. But if we had a stronger southern border, and I think Donald Trump would give us a stronger southern border. You want to talk about the wall. There's lots of ways to have a secure border. I mean, this is the new age, right? You can do it with electronics. You can do it with strategic positioning of the people in that agency. It doesn't have to be a 20-foot wall, because if you got a 20-foot wall, what do you need? A 25-foot ladder. I get all that. But I think at my core, and one of the main reasons that I will vote for Donald Trump, even though I don't personally like him, and that's okay, right? We can all have opinions, is because what she did or what she didn't do, in my mind, is disqualifying. So there you go. With that said, let's go have some pizza. What do you say? Jim Dingman's got pies ready to go for us, and I am hungry. We must be getting close to lunchtime recording this. And he piles it high. Look at that pizza. Man, if you're looking online and you're not hungry right now, I don't know what to tell you. You like to have fun? Look at all the games they have there for the kids. Funhouse Pizza has 2 locations. They're on 50 Highway in Lee's Summit, 7 Highway in Blue Springs. It's a great place for a birthday party, anniversary party. Whatever your big celebration is going on, you can have it at Funhouse Pizza in either Lee's Summit or Blue Springs. Food's fantastic. The atmosphere is exactly what you want. Funhouse Pizza. Put it on your list. Get together with your football team here for the fall, the parents' meeting or what have you. Have it at Funhouse Pizza. Blue Springs, Lee's Summit. All right. And one more shout out to Bob Watson, my insurance guy for nearly 35 years. Think about that. When he took me on and my family on and all those kids that were driving, he was a fairly young man. And, you know, my kids probably contributed to any gray hair that he has. I'm sure I had nothing to do with it. But my kids, on the other hand, probably so. Bob would tell you for sure. He will shoot you straight on your insurance needs. Bundle your home and car insurance. Save even more big bucks. 7th and Main in Blue Springs is where he's office, but that doesn't mean a thing. He's got a phone and a pen, much like Barack Obama had, but Bob uses his to take care of you and your insurance needs. 816-229-7878, licensed in both Missouri and Kansas. Bob Watson, State Farm agent for 50 years. Put him to work for you and your family. I ended with global warming / climate change. I saw this on Facebook the other day, and I couldn't find it for reference, but we hit a low temperature of 46 the other day, and it was like one of the coldest temperatures ever on that date. And you can find this stuff all you want, right? You can go the other side and say, I mean, my Nashville Insider today told me it was 106 in L.A. The other day. You can find weather extremes no matter where you go. And is the climate warming over time? It probably is, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean,
probably
that seems to be what's happening.
We've gone through heating of the planet. We've gone through ice ages on the planet. And what I would tell anybody who dismisses my views on climate change and or global warming, I know they want to hodgepodge it all together. It's like, oh, you're a flat earther. You know, have you been called a flat earther?
I don't think I've been called that, actually.
Well, you are. You're a flat earther because I'm a flat earther, according to them anyway. But what I think I am is a reasonable guy who says we've got a planet that's been spinning around the sun for 5 billion years. It's a big number. Compare that to the length of time we've had human occupation of planet Earth. And what I think is unreasonable and out there are the people who think that we can make any change as humans and keep this planet in the Goldilocks zone. Mm-hmm. That's, to me, that's absurd. Maybe you're the flat earthers because you can't. The planet's going to do what the planet's going to do. Now, at the end of the day, if you decide you want to drive an EV because you care that much, drive your damn EV. Hell, don't even do that because you're plugging into a grid. And we had a warning a couple of weeks ago because we had like a hot week that said, hey, we don't think we're going to be able to keep up with the power demands that you have. Yet the administration that wants to be your next president in Kamala Harris, they want to mandate that you all drive electric cars. The grid can't support us now. How are we going to support millions of more people plugging in their car every night? We can't. It's absurd. So do whatever makes you feel good, but let's have an all-in energy policy. Let's try and be reasonable. Let's try and be kinder to each other. At the end of the day, I know some of you are going to vote for Kamala Harris. I know most of the folks listening to this podcast or watching it are going to vote for Donald Trump. And no matter what happens at the end of this election, the sun is going to come up the next day and make it a little warmer in this place because that's the trend that we're currently on. So until next week when we tear apart the debate, and I don't know, maybe we'll get a couple of moments of video that we could show.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Until then, this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.